listening to the Getting Salty Experience podcast.
And away we fucking go. Oh, top of the morning to you. It's the fucking Getting Salty Experience podcast. It's the only fucking podcast in the whole wide world that brings the Firehouse kitchen table right into your own house, Danny. No, you don't. Yes, I do. It brings a fucking Firehouse kitchen table right into Chief Steve's fucking
like
living room.
F-bombs before in the first minute.
Thanks for getting rid of our monetization. My kids did not need that money.
What are you doing?
As always, where's the hat? As always, I'm brought to you with my lifelong friend and chum of 40 years, Louis Raffrano. How are you tonight, Louis? And we got Pandemic Pete tonight. Pandemic Pete and the Wheels of Steel. He made it to the COVID. He did all right. He did okay. He's still alive. Me and Petey, I think we're going twinning tonight. And guess who we dug up for you lads tonight? We dug up these two old fossils. Got out the shovel myself and dug them right out of the grave, don't you know? We dug them out. We got Hanky down there in Florida. I can't do this forever. It's bothering the shit out of me.
Oh, dear, I was really enjoying it.
We got a good show for you guys tonight. Very informative.
And we have, who else do we have? We have Hank down in Florida, and who else?
Well, we're not ready to give him that yet, bro. We got to give him the old sponsor, the shameless plug. Give it to him.
Oh, okay. Well, clearly, guys, if you've been watching, you'll know that we are sponsored by GettingSaltyApparel.com. Guys, where you can find shirts like this one, the Man in the Arena, the Spartan shirt, or cool hats like the he's wearing, or the awesome t-shirt that Mr. Mole is wearing down there. Guys, if you want the coolest firefighter apparel and accessories in the business, head on over to GettingSaltyApparel.com to mute Chief Steve. I'm going to mute him. Head on over to Live TV. Yeah. Live TV, Steve. GettingSaltyApparel.com.
Thank you. Honey, I need another White Claw. Could you get... Are we on?
We also have a word of the day today, don't we, guys?
We do for a Monday night. We got a word of the day.
Believe it or not, we're gonna go in. Word of the day is cockloft.
You said cock.
Hey, did somebody give Chief Steve?
He's ready. He's ready to go.
His meds tonight. Yeah. He was just doing this. Yeah. We're doing one of those that pod shows tonight. You know, one of those dates.
No, my wife asked me what I'm doing.
I know. Oh. Yeah, we're doing one of them that pod shows. You know what those things are.
You guys all know Chief Steve, right? You know.
Without further ado, Chief Steve.
I'm Chief Steve. I'm here to inspect. That better not be fear on your breath. Line up in order. Dress right, dress. Go get a comb. Your hair's a fucking mess. Proper uniform is what I'm here to see. No getting salty shirts. They won't get past me. 'Cause I'm Chief Steve.
Never get told. No, Pete,
needed to play that one more time before we retire.
Play the new one.
Chief, you should be on it. You're the only one that has a song about it. So,
Wait. Pete's
we're about to. Yeah, I'm going to play the new one now. This is actually the Chief Kev's theme song right here. This is when he first met Frank Mole.
Frank
Mole.
I mean, Hank Mole. Sorry, Hank. You see, this fucking guy is confusing me.
He ruined it. Look,
he got so excited.
He got so excited.
He don't even know what that is. He screwed the whole thing up again.
Sorry, Mr. Mole. But there he is.
Look at that. That's this. Pete, that's supposed to be this. That's why we sent that to you.
Right.
He got all excited to try and get back to you.
Before.
All right.
He killed the whole thing.
So Pete's going to play the new Chief Steve song now.
Next week.
Oh, next week.
When we have Chief Steve on for the
right
for the live show, as we discussed in all of our pre-show planning.
Louis, don't remind me of the Golden Child when he drops the coin down and he goes,
He's waiting for the.
I want the knife.
All right, so
please.
Yeah. So we got Chief Steve and we have Frank Mole. Thanks for coming on, Frank. Appreciate it. Great job, Frank.
My pleasure.
All right, so today,
Frank,
we're gonna get
sorry,
Frank Mole. We're gonna get into it. We're going to get into the cockloft explosion.
I was up there doing it.
We're going to get into the cockloft explosion. We're going to get into the cockloft. Ruffy, I got him rattled. He's rattled, Ruffy. He doesn't know what to do. All right,
They come so
cockloft
loose so
explosion.
fast. It's incredible.
They do. A rollover, flashover, and a backdraft. How do you like that? So let's get into the meat and potatoes of it. We'll go right to Chief Steve. We got to go right to him. He's our guy. Give us a little
You're
facts.
right to me. Well,
Yep.
let's talk about what the differences are in what you just talked about.
Okay.
A flashover versus a backdraft or a rollover.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly is a flashover? What is a backdraft? What's the difference? And what causes these events to happen? All right, a backdraft is basically an explosion, and what causes a backdraft is that as we all know from basic fire science, what makes up a fire? You have a combustible, you have heat, and you have oxygen. So in a backdraft, what you've done is the fire has burned up all the oxygen, and going into a decayed stage, unless something changes in the environment, and that changes somebody or some event introduces oxygen. Now, while the fire was burning and creating pressure, all these gases and everything were still being formed because of the heat that was there, but the oxygen was below 15% or 14%, depending on what you read. Flaming combustion stopped. But once you introduce that oxygen, those gases want to now expand, and you have an explosion. Now, in today's vernacular, and they've changed things through the years, they call a cockloft explosion basically is a backdraft, in a confined area, meaning that space above the ceiling.
Better.
So that is, like I say, that's a backdraft. All right.
So it's just a backdraft in a confined space area.
Right. That's a backdraft can occur anywhere. Just that they've been occurring in the
Upper areas
of areas of buildings, and so they've been calling them cockloft explosions.
Ah.
But they are basically backdraft.
Oh man, we're gonna get drunk tonight. That's gonna.
A flashover is not an explosion. A flashover is when all the contents in a room, they ignite simultaneously. When the heat in the room, from radiant heat, ignites all the combustibles in the room at one time, and they flash. And that can happen, and I think you have a video of this, depending on the contents of the room, as quickly as 3 or 4 minutes. And if you have the contents of a room, what they used to call a legacy room, where the furnishings were mostly wood, cotton, fiber, things like that, it took about 30 minutes to flash a room. But the difference is with today, what they call a modern room, between the combustibles that make up the occupancy and the tightness of the rooms that keep in the heat and the insulation, it creates the thermal feedback that precipitates the flashover much quicker.
So
those are your two differences.
Would you say that back in the day when they had combustibles that were mostly wood and cotton and stuff like that, and they didn't have the thermal pane windows, there were less backdrafts occurring back in the day than there were today with the
there were less flashovers because it took longer to flash. It took like you'll see in this, if he shows you the entire video, the natural room, meaning a room from furnishings from 40 and 50 years ago, it took 30 minutes to flash a room like that. Whereas today, these rooms, this is why, and you get into all of these problems. What you have now is you've totally changed the science of firefighting in the last 50 years. We've changed everything about firefighting. We went from having rooms like you see there on the left, right, where that that window, single pane window, would have failed,
Right.
and the fire would be coming out that window, and you would have a lot less chance of a flashover, just for that reason alone.
Well, if you going by the definition that you gave of backdraft, then it would also be less chance that there is a backdraft if it's venting already and it's not sealed tight with the thermal pane windows, and it takes a while for it to get going. Whereas if you had the contents of today, where it's things are burning quicker and everything's airtight, and then somebody comes and takes a window. So you're probably back in the day, they probably didn't have as many.
You didn't have. I mean, you can ask Hank too. I mean, early in my career, I remember one backdraft that I responded to, and we got there right after it happened, and it was in a taxpayer type building. And all I remember, because like I say, it was when I was a probie. We got there, and it was a guy, and he was putting a portable ladder up to go to the roof of this taxpayer when it blew. And when we got there, the portable ladder was on top of him. He was laying under the portable ladder because it had just blown right on top of him. Right. But like I say, that you didn't hear too much about them because, like I say, the entire science of firefighting, the way we fight fires, except for the part that we're still putting water on fires, but basically everything has changed from the equipment that we wear going in. Years ago, we had a turnout coat and a helmet and a pair. If you were in a truck or a rescue, or there wasn't a squad then, but a truck, guys wore what they call truck boots. That was it. You didn't have any bunker pants. Your coat was. Some guys even wore, like the chauffeur wore. Basically, you see them climbing up the front of the fire escape wearing the chauffeur's jacket, what they used to call it, and go in. So you weren't going in too far into a building like that. Today, everybody's bunkered up. You got it. You got the hood. Everyone's got a mask. When I first started, not a lot of guys wore a mask. You couldn't go in. Now you can go in pretty far. You can go in a lot further and get yourself in a lot more trouble than you could years ago.
Either you're so encapsulated.
But what hasn't changed is, regardless of whether a flashover happened even in a room 40 years ago or today, you have the same amount of time to get out of there. They say if you're more than 5 feet into a room that's flashed,
couple seconds,
you're not gonna make it.
Well, I was in a room more than 5 feet with Fat Daddy. We had a cockloft explosion. He left footprints on my back. Out of there.
But just to reiterate, one of the things that Steve said was, they said, well, back years ago when we used to take our dinosaurs into the firehouse to work, you had the single pane windows. You didn't have as many of these solid, we call it solid gasoline, the VOCs, the volatile organic compounds that you have in the rooms now that are burning. You'd pull up to a job, fire would be out 3 or 4 windows. It looks spectacular, but it's like, it's a walk in the park, Kazansky. You're going to go bring the line up and push it right out the windows. You didn't want to pull up to a building
and not
where
see
fire wasn't showing, and you had brown and gray and black marshmallow pumping out because you knew you were going to get your ass kicked. So, I think that's why you're seeing more of these type of backdrafts. I don't want to say the cockloft, but here we go.
Smoke explosion.
I don't think we could do everyone.
Right, but and it's a combination of the type of materials that are in the buildings, and what we've done to make buildings more energy efficient, between thermal pane windows, even sidings, insulation, and even the roofing material. You remember in the squad how I ended up writing that article for W1YF about the built-up roofing?
Yep.
And that the way that I found out about it was I was in 175 at the time. We had a job in Brownsville. I think we went as a second log truck. At 5'7", I remember giving us, he said, 175, I got to get the roof opened up. I need some help up there. Brought the saw up and started trying to cut the roof, and it was cutting like butter. No sawdust. It was like, what's going on here? And basically, reports from inside were not good. Guys were saying, it was getting, they kept talking about building up heat. The chief transmitted a third alarm. Long story short, that building had just been renovated. It was an old law tenement. but they had just put all new energy efficient windows, had put this built up roofing. And what had happened was the insulation on the roof was about 6.5 inches thick. The blade on the partner saw only cuts about 4 or 4.5 inches. So you're first laying the blade in, and all I was cutting was the top membrane and the styrofoam roofing, underneath. And once we realized what we had, immediately radioed the chief to let him know there was going to be a delay in the roof. And then you had to go pull. A lot of that styrofoam is glued down, so you had to get in there and like rip it up. It just rips. You know how styrofoam is. And once you got it cleaned out, you had to go back in with the saw until you got through the styrofoam and the wood. Once we got that hole cut and pulled, the whole inside, the conditions changed dramatically. Guys were starting to move the line in. Reports were getting better, and luckily it didn't get to the smoke explosion or flashover stage, but it must have been pretty close from the reports they were getting. But again, what was inside and what was done on the outside for energy efficiency made the formula for those type of conditions.
So let's talk about the signs. And we were talking about it before in the pre-show, right? Watching the smoke, the direction of the smoke, the color of the smoke. And I'm sure, when we pull up as opposed to what the chief sees, we're going to have two different perspectives, right? So let's get the perspective on both sides. As the chief standing outside, what are you looking at, Chief Steve, when you're at a building? What are the signs for you? What are those signs for you?
I'm looking to see, basically from the time I get there, which way conditions are going. Are they getting better or are they getting worse? And are we hitting the seat of the fire? Do we, exactly what we're doing? If I'm standing out there and they're telling me we got it knocked down, but the smoke is getting dirty brown and it's pushing more, I know that, they may have knocked down some fire, but they haven't knocked down all the fire. And when they talk about these, like I say, these flashovers and these backdrafts, one of the biggest problems is what they do is they come in and they partition buildings, and this is where we get into one of our biggest problems, because you go in and they might have taken an apartment and chopped it up. You go in, the line goes in, and they can't tell that now this is like 2 apartments and there's some door that they haven't seen, and the fire's roaring behind in this area. Everything they see they've knocked down or whatever, but in this area that they don't have access to at this point, they haven't found it. It's burning away. Or they came in and renovated the building, and from floor to floor they dropped the ceilings, and now the fire is burning in each floor in that ceiling space. And again, the guys, they knock down the fire. They don't see that, they haven't found all the fire because of, like I say, renovations and alterations in buildings. And classic example of that is the fire up in the Bronx, the Sunday fire. Right, the one up in the Bronx there. That fire was burning in an area.
Black Sunday, I should say. Yeah.
Black Sunday. I couldn't think of the word. That fire was burning away. They thought they had it knocked down. I mean, that was one of the problems they had. But they had partitioned those apartments off, and when it finally broke out, they were trapped.
Yep. We had Jeff Coolin. He was telling us that story, right, Louis?
Yeah. I wanted to say was just a quick thing with what Chief Steve was saying is, finding the seat of the fire. When I got on the job, like these guys were before me, me and you, Koob, if you were in the engine, you never opened up the line until you saw fire, right? You waited till you got to the truck would go in, find the fire, bring you there, and then you would start at the fire, putting the fire out. I don't know if that's, because
that's another rule that's changed.
Right. Hank was saying that
that's another rule that has changed, that because of,
the combustibles and how hot it gets so fast.
Right. I mean, if that and Hank will say the same thing, that was something that was always in this job. You don't open the line until you hit fire. But you didn't have the conditions that you have now. Now, when you get in and you've got this bunker gear on and you can feel the heat through your bunker gear and you haven't found the fire, we tell them all the time now, you open that line up and cool the area to prevent it from flashing on you.
Right.
If that's what they call, and they even have terms, what they call black fire, where the fire is in the smoke. You can't see it, but it's hot enough that as soon as it gets a chance, it's going to blow on you. So what you have to do is you got to cool it. Even if you don't see the flame, you got to cool it.
Yeah, I think that's what Jerry Tracy was talking about, right, Louis? To cool down.
It's changing. Like all these guys are all right. You said, like Hank was saying, all these things are changing, right? The way the fires are today, it's tough to get old timers to think about opening up, on smoke. But now the younger guys, because of all the technology, and you see all these things on YouTube. I mean, after you said we were going to do the show, I just happened to look up a little bit on YouTube, and you watch these guys in these, and we had talked about this in the pre-show, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it. These flashover simulators and all this stuff. It's incredible how you could watch, really get a good view, because you're not going to so many fires and you don't see this. These things don't happen all the time. So these are the things that'll kill you. So to have a scenario where you could watch it over and over and over again in a controlled setting, somewhat, and you watch these guys, they just hit like opening up on the smoke and it shuts it right down. It just cools off the area a little bit and it changes everything, where you could stay there.
Yeah. So what is it? Go ahead, Hank.
I mean, we're still on reading smoke.
Right.
I mean, I know there's been numerous articles written about reading smoke, and it is important. And but I actually I spoke with Fat Daddy today and Dennis Murphy, on what the subject was going to be tonight, and kind of agreed that it's a lot easier when you're outside to read the smoke, like Steve was saying. When you got guys inside telling, we're not gonna fire down, but outside you're still getting brown and marshmallow and it's starting to pump under pressure. Obviously, you're hitting fire, but it's burning somewhere else. You haven't gotten to the seat of it yet. And I've always found, if you're the guy inside, it's really not that easy to read the smoke. Other than when we get into like flashovers a little, there are signs you can read, but you're so wound up with, moving the line, making your search. It's more on your senses if you're feeling the heat more than. What is that?
You want to pick that up?
No. Don't worry. It's almost over.
Must be the fire marshal.
He'll collect them.
We never went into the phone here.
But and then I lost my train of thought. But
reading smoke when you're on the inside trying to read smoke.
To me, it's a lot tougher. Another thing that Dennis brought up, and it was a good reminder. It talks about, they said a lot of times we'd be on the roof, you'd cut the roof, and you would have a tremendous plume of smoke coming out, like acrid black and brown, and maybe 10 or 15 feet off the roof level, all of a sudden it would be flame.
Yeah.
And why was that? Because the stuff that was burning inside, actually the VOCs was so rich, like you've heard, it's too rich to burn, to explode. And that's what was happening. It was under so much pressure and so rich. And now once it hits that oxygen, boom, now it's lighting up in the sky. But that just tells you how bad it is inside and what's going to happen as soon as either somebody takes another window or pulls the ceiling. So those are the kind of things you got to watch for too.
Yeah. What is it that you see when you say that's enough and it's time for the guys to come out? What are some of the things that you would see that would make you make that decision?
What are some of the things?
Let's go ahead, Steve. You take
Talking
that.
to the guy with the white hat.
It's got the white hat. There's no absolutes in it, but it's a combination of things. Basically, how long have they been trying to get this, and which way it's going? If I get up if I arrive, which I never arrive at the initial stage. I'm not like the battalion chief. But when I arrive, you want to see where you're at. You take a good look at where things are going. Now, and I have to surmise that, we're already, by the time I get there, 10 or 15 minutes into the operation. Okay. So which way are things going? And, what's the occupancy? What on an every fire is an individual basis, but what am I seeing? Am I seeing while they're in there, smoke starting to push and pump and, and being a problem? If my biggest concern is when I get there, did they do a search yet? If they've done a search and searches primaries are complete, I don't really see if I lean towards caution. If I don't see anything to be gained right now, and everything is telling me things are getting worse, I have no problem pulling them out. I also have no problem, which is again a thing that we never did years ago, is I have no problem with opening a line from the street and knocking it down. Huh?
Basement window.
Basement window,
No.
first floor window. I have no problem with doing that, which is again, that was something that, you were a coward if you did things like that years ago. But when you look at it, like I say, I've seen, even watching some of the training videos with the of other jobs that they've done, where they pull up and the fire is just blowing out there, and if there's anyone in there, they're dead. Well, so all you want to do is you just want to knock it out on your way in. It's not
take the
you're not
sting
going
out
to
a
stay
little
in the
bit.
street and stay out there.
Right.
You're just going to knock it down to make it easier for yourself once you get in there. But like I say, that years ago, it was something you never did.
And I'll be honest, I still, granted, I'm not fighting fires anymore. And I know that a lot of guys that I respect that are still on the job, yourself, Chief, Tommy Richardson, a lot of these big, chiefs that got a ton of fire experience are all saying that move is a good move and it's okay. I know, and I have to believe it is, but like I said, I have a hard time because playing the devil's advocate, I look at it like if I pull up to a tenement and there's fire out 2 windows in the front on the 2nd or 3rd floor, whatever, it's venting itself. So to me, we always, you get the line in, get behind the fire, and push it out where it's already going. I'm looking at if I'm opening that line in the window, if there's anybody further in the room, I might steam them to burn them, or I might push the fire further into the building. So, for me, like I say, I'm the old dinosaur. It's still hard for me to
I don't think you're talking about two windows.
Number one,
right?
I'm talking about
Right.
I'm talking about operations where they ain't getting it. Like, they're trying to make a push in and they ain't doing it.
Right.
So
no progress. I get what you're saying.
So it says no progress. Is no, and they're telling me, when we ain't get, I see them there and they're not moving anywhere. So I have no problem with doing that. Now, the other thing, this is after you've left the job, they've done tests. They did a lot of these tests, and they found out that you don't push the fire the way they thought. The most important thing is to cool it. It's more important than the thought of like you're going to push it into an area, because they did all these tests at the Governor's Island there, where
we're burning the buildings. Yeah,
the burns in the building, and they found that they did not push the fire. They cooled the area and they put it out. Now, I'm not saying that, again, there are no absolutes. I'm not saying that they'd never push the fire into, depending on, they get into all these theories with airflow and all of this. I'm not saying it's impossible, but all the tests they did, they showed that they were not pushing fire. Jimmy Kane, I don't know if you know Jimmy Kane. He wound up being a BC in the 4.9, but he teaches all over the country with this stuff. And they did all these, they show you, the camera inside and all the stuff. And like I say, all the things that we were taught, all that stuff that we were taught years ago, they found out that a lot of it is just, has changed. It's just not. So many things have changed that the tactics have got to change. And like I say, I'm not saying you use an outside line as just standard operating procedure. Right. I'm saying that I see times when you have one of these PDs and the entire building is the frame building, and I gotta knock it down quick. I gotta do something. What we're doing right now is not working. And like I say, it's a frame building, and I got another line here ready to go in to be the backup. I just tell the guys inside, pull back a minute. I'm going to let them open this line from the street here for a second and try and knock it down, because you're not being, from whatever angle, if you're not be able to make the turn, or the area is just, like I say, it's been partitioned off, you're not getting it.
Right.
You're not getting it from where you are, and I need to try another tactic. And years ago, we did not, we weren't open to doing other tactics. I had a fire not long after I became not long after I became a deputy chief. It was like on the 4th floor of a high rise, and the guys were inside with 2 lines, and they were trying to knock it down, and they couldn't. And what's his name was the chief up there on the fire floor. And he's just telling me, we can't make any progress. We can't make any progress. So I told him, I said, all right, shut the line, go back into the hallway. I opened the tower ladder. I knocked it down with the tower ladder. Now, Joe Callan called me on the carpet for it. And he said, what the hell are you doing? Open the line. I said, I pulled them back to, the battalion chief told me they were McPartland. It was McPartland. Mike McPartland had him on the fire for that. Told me they couldn't make it. They weren't going anywhere. Weren't making a headway. I had to do something. So I knocked it down. He goes, he said to me, suppose somebody was in there. I said, if somebody was in there, they were dead.
Yeah.
They were dead because this line couldn't make it into the apartment.
You should have said whatever was left of them is in the apartment.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
So I said, you can say whatever you want. It was my decision. I did it. And I did it because they told me they couldn't make it in there. So that's what I did.
Chief, I had when I was a lieutenant, I was in 103. I was actually working in 175, but 103 came to the job. We were first and second due. It was on Atlantic and Pennsylvania, the bank that was on the corner.
Oh, that bank.
It was I was first due, right? WNYF. The picture that they show, there's fire out, I don't know, 10 windows on the second floor, third floor.
Yeah.
We had a steel door. We forced the door. We go in, and the guys had a 2.5. 290 had a 2.5, and they tried to knock it down. And it just, we tried. Yeah, we came back out. We tried to get a second 2.5 to get up there. We stayed there. We tried. We couldn't get it. I radioed to the chief. We're not getting it. It was the 4-4. I don't remember who the chief was. I think Jakubowski ended up, the division was there. He said, close the door. I have 120 set up. We're going to knock it down for 1 minute, and then you guys go back in. And to his credit, they hit it for a minute or 2 minutes, just took it out. They shut down. We weren't in there. And there was a lot, there was still good fire there, but we weren't able to get
go in on it then.
Correct.
You
and the guys did a great job. And when I came down, I looked like, You
look like the guy.
Like I say, but years ago, you wouldn't even have suggested something like that.
Right.
You wouldn't have, like I say, they'd be, what are you, a coward? You get it. I mean, and they didn't care if guys got burnt. This is what we do. This is,
Well, that was it. And the fires always went out. I mean, not that it's right.
Eventually,
that was the mentality. That guys were not going to back out and let another company take their fire. So they'd come out, with blisters and burns and everything, but that fire went out. And and like you say though, back then it was, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. These tactics are working. But like we've all just said tonight, things have changed. What the contents of the buildings have changed. Energy efficiency has changed the building. So yeah, granted, fire tactics have to change to fight the fires in the buildings that the guys are going into now. So
just the science, just the pure science. Regular cotton, wood, all of that puts out 8,000 BTUs per pound. Soft plastics like styrofoam and stuff that puts out 12,000 BTUs per pound. Now, if you get into hard plastics, they put out 18,000 BTUs per pound. So you're doing more than twice the amount of heat per pound of material in there, and the amount of smoke, the smoke that it generates is like 500 times the amount of smoke.
Wow!
And that smoke becomes flammable gases, which then ignite.
Right. It's like having a car fire inside the building with the rubber tires burning and all, and VOCs. Absolutely. The amount of smoke that a car fire generates.
I think Tracy was saying that he had a little catchphrase that's what is it? Smoke is fuel. I think he was saying.
It is.
Well, it is.
The type of smoke it is fuel.
Yeah.
It's incomplete combustion, especially when it's black like that. That's telling you what it is.
Right.
Have you ever taken a lap around a building because you wanted to see from your own eyes and not the information that you were getting? Have you ever gone up and down the driveway or gone to the rear for yourself?
I've done that a lot.
You do? All right.
Yeah. Not because I don't, because just like Hank was saying before, when you're inside the building a lot, you can't see everything that's going on. I want to at least know before I make decisions on things. I want to have an idea of what I'm, they can't draw me a picture, of they can tell me, we need a line back here. But for me to go back there and take a look, absolutely. I do that. I've done that at many, many fires that, I just consider that to be basically part of my job, to tell you the truth.
Hanky, what about the use of the cameras? You know, as far as detecting a flashover, or do you think they help?
Well, again, when I was in Rescue 1, we actually were given the first thermal imaging camera that the FDNY had. I think it was a Bullard. It was like a big old barrel with a trigger handle, and it had it had soft covering around it.
We got yours. I think we got yours. Remember?
It's like 17 pounds.
Right. That was the chauffeur's job. But depending on the job, you kind of knew your buildings and what you were pulling up to, if you were going to need it or not, to take it. And in Manhattan, most of the time you took it because it had the strap and you could carry it just like on the other shoulder from your flashlight. We always had the flashlight with the strap on one, that going across the other, and whatever your tools were. And it is an effective tool. It was. You could find heat, behind the wall and the ceiling. But I remember one instance I had with it was, and it was fairly new with the camera, still learning how to use it at different jobs. And we had a job down in the Bowery in a commercial building, and I think it was on the second floor. I think the second alarm had already been banged in, and I'm up in a room. I'm supposed to be checking for extension, so I got this camera. Let me look. So I'm looking, and I'm seeing heat behind the wall. You could see where the bays and stuff, and it was it shows white where the heat is, and I go to give the report, and then all of a sudden, the camera whites out, and all of a sudden I'm getting very hot, and I took the camera down, and it whited out because fire just blew out, in this room. Yeah, exactly. It basically flashed in there, and I hightailed it out because I didn't have there was no engine with a line or anything. Right. We were looking for extensions, so then I was able to give the report. You might want to get a line up here, close the door, But yeah, I mean, the camera is an effective tool, but not when it flashes in the room you're in.
Nope.
You don't see nothing.
I would say when I first started, like when we popped the door, most of the time being the boss, or even when I was a fireman, I was generally trying to be the first guy in the door. And if I could get in the door and not feel, I would never really use the camera when we had the cameras, like to search. Like I would just feel or listen. If I could hear or see, obviously if we popped the door and you could see the fire, that was the best thing, ever. But if you couldn't, which was most of the time, you would crawl, I would crawl into, whatever it was, 10 feet, listen, feel. If I wasn't feeling a lot of heat, then I was good, right? I mean, I wasn't going to be, burning up in the next 5 seconds. And that's how I would go 10 foot at a time. And right. Until I started to feel heat or heard crackling or could see the fire, on the ceiling or in the smoke.
Right.
But I think that what happens is now that, like you just said, Hank, the fire changes so fast, the heat changes fast, right? You can get hot quick. It's not like a gradual thing. I used to hear that at jobs all the time as a squad, like, holy shit, it's getting hot up here. Like all of a sudden things would change and the smoke might ignite or however it worked out, but guys would be caught because we were so insulated and so far in that if they weren't not paying attention, but if they, you can get caught faster in that scenario because of the smoke and how fast it could change on you.
That and the insulation with your bunker.
Are we all frozen now?
No, we're good. You're good.
Back? Okay, we're back now.
You're good.
Right. Yeah, another thing, I mean, this is a little off, but since you brought the camera up, one effective use with that Bullard when we had it, had a job downtown, pretty good job, but it was in a basement, but the whole basement wasn't consumed, with fire, but the whole basement was filled with heavy smoke. And one of the guys in the truck who was making a search ended up getting separated from the officer and I guess the can man, and had given a mayday. He was lost. Now this basement had rolls of textiles, like fabrics and stuff rolled up all over the floor, but it was maybe 5 to 6 foot high. And I wasn't working this tour, but I got the story when I came in. The chauffeur that night was able to scan the basement, and he actually saw the guy's head, picked up the heat from his head and was able to get on the radio and say, I got you on the camera, stay right there. And then had had one of our guys go around and guided him to find him with a search line and get him out, with a happy ending. So, that was besides using it to find heat and stuff. It was, now I think they use it for that all the time. But back then we were learning different uses of it, and it was very effective, and for that.
Hank, was that the only happy ending you ever had?
No, actually, it was when you were trying to get to the squad. It was very nice.
Pete, we got the video. We got that video, Pete, of Pete trying to talk to Hank.
Yeah, here it is.
When Hank walked in the room. This is what happens every time Hank calls.
When Frank walked into the room? Thanks, Frank.
Hank, I wanted to say early on with the camera.
It's Frank.
When we first got the camera, I felt like that I would depend on the camera too much, and I wouldn't concentrate so much on my points on the wall or how I was searching, as opposed to just walking in with the camera looking for the fire. And I think that was something that I changed because of that, because you can get lost with the camera because you could see the outline and stuff like that.
You know what else, Lou? The camera is not the tool for every building. I mean, you got to remember, for a company like Rescue One with the buildings in Manhattan, it can be a very effective tool. But if we went up to Harlem or the Lower East Side, nobody was bringing it into a tenement or a brownstone or anything. But if you were going into a big commercial,
it's more for that style thing, right? Guys
right.
Can get lulled into thinking that that's what you should be using when you're searching a PD or something like that.
Exactly. And my contention always was you don't want to become 100% because what happens when the battery dies? Yeah, we always used to,
right? No doubt. No,
it's all. But I always, and when I taught too, you always wanted to teach the what ifs. All right, so you're going in. Worst case scenario. Camera, right, batteries are dead. I mean, and even a couple of times at the Rock when I did some guest appearances there with the Probies. You couldn't do it now, but back then I'd ask them to show me your warranty card from the Scots. And now the Probies there, it's like deers in the headlight. They're looking at each other. I'm like, where are the cards? And they're like, sir, we didn't get any cards. You didn't? You know why you didn't? Because that mask is not going to work 100% of the time. And what are you going to do when that mask fails and you're 30 feet in the room? So I used to tell them, when the fire was knocked down, take the mask off and take a little feed and feel what it's like to get that choking feeling in your throat and hitting the floor and getting out. And now you can't take your mask off for anything.
Is that why you're being sued?
I'm long gone, brother.
And he did the wrong thing.
He did the wrong thing, Pete.
Allegedly. But
okay. Hold on.
These are some of the things that we did back then.
That is wrong. And he did the wrong thing.
Did the wrong thing.
They shoot you for that now.
Exactly. But the point I'm saying is that again, it's off backdraft and everything, but anything that you're carrying that's mechanical or battery operated or whatever, there's a good chance that at some point in your career that thing's going to break down. And if you've become so dependent on like a camera to get in or out of the building, you got to know how to get in.
Yeah, no doubt.
Should I be bringing a search line? How many radiators did I hit along this wall on this search that I got so I can get out? Little things that all these pointers we picked up along the way, and that's how you learn. That's how you become a good firefighter.
Yeah. Same thing with the roof saw, right? It's a mechanical tool.
And how many?
You shouldn't know how to cut a roof with an axe.
That's correct. Correct. And you know what? I know. And even though we checked the saw at the beginning of the tour, I can think of at least 3 times at jobs where the saw was started and run, and then you got to the job and the fucking thing
was choking off. Right, would choke off because of the smoke or whatever. It wouldn't start.
I'm no stranger to choking off. But listen,
same thing goes for the rabbit tool.
Yeah.
Right.
Like you say. If you don't know your forcible entry, and
Well, there's a question for you. When you were a captain, did you have the thermal imager yet before you became a chief, or they didn't have them out yet?
Did they have what?
Thermal imager. Did you get a chance to use them as a captain, or they didn't have it? You didn't.
No thermal imager.
I might have said this before. You know who had the initial sale, or the multi-$2 million sale of thermal imaging cameras to the FDNY?
I don't know, Bill Kubler?
I don't know.
No, my old lady. How you like that, bro? Bam! Yep.
Nice.
She had the sale. Yep.
All right. There you go. That's why you're living large, bro.
Oh yeah, that's why I'm living large. Listen,
Peddling your t-shirts.
Yeah, yeah. I peddling t-shirts at trade shows.
So now that we've gotten way off the subject, we want to go back to you want to go into the flashover or
Yeah, you know what? But before we do that, Pete, play a couple of those videos so we could see.
Yeah. Do we want to see the FDNY one?
we haven't talked about a cock loft in a while.
Oh!
Hey!
Yeah, Petey, play the one on Queens Boulevard.
All right, here we go. Oh.
All of the stores are going up now. There's fire behind the clouds, as I stated before. We got tower ladders up. There goes more lines coming in. Oh my God! Oh my God! Major explosion. Members are down. Oh my God! Jesus Christ in heaven. Everybody's being backed out. Members are hurt. They're getting everybody down. They're getting all the ladders and all the members out. Over there, when they open the door, back down. It looks like the members are okay. Doesn't look like anybody's hurt. I don't think. They're removing everybody.
You know what I like the best out of that? When he goes, Jesus Christ! Wait.
In heaven.
In heaven.
Yeah.
You know what, bro? The last time I heard a report like that was when I was with Petey's old lady when she was, Jesus Christ, major explosion!
Cold-blooded.
Sorry, Pete. So who you said you didn't have that job, right? McSweeney had it?
McSweeney had that job, yeah.
Right. What was his that's Pete's go-to now. That's all he's got. That's all
It stays there forever.
Now, just wait a minute.
Yeah, get this off. Yeah, you can't talk with those hot dogs flying.
No, I can't talk while that's on. No. One of the things, one of the big differences that you see between, let's say, a backdraft there and a flashover is that you'll notice that it's like that backdraft happens and then in 10 seconds it's over. The fire is, the fire is still through the roof, but the fire that blew out those stores isn't there. And one of the things that they talk about constantly, if in a flashover, if the room flashes, you want to try to get out of the room. They tell you if you think it's if you think you're going to be caught in a backdraft, what do they tell you? Hit the floor.
Hit the floor.
Hit the floor, because normally what happens is that wall of fire will only burn to within a couple of feet of the floor. It won't go all the way down to the floor, where as a flashover is going to burn all the way down to the floor. You're not going to be, if you hit the floor in a flashover, you ain't going to save yourself. Whereas in a backdraft condition, you got a good chance that if you're prone all the way on the floor, that thing is basically going to blow over you, and then it'll be out in a second or two.
So turtle up and hit the fetal position.
That's what, like I say, versus the flashover, that ain't going to help you. If you hit the fetal position in the flashover, that's where they're going to find you, in the fetal position.
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Steve. A backdraft, though, it can actually be explosive, where it could take the building down, a part of it, where a flashover is generally the big problem there is the engulfment from the fire, because everything in the room is
a backdraft could take the building, but as far as like I say, like that one you just saw there, where it just and then the other one too we saw earlier, where they blow out and then they've gone out. But it can, if the building is tight enough and the pressure is enough, it definitely can. They have taken down buildings, in which case you ain't getting out anyway. So
I got out. I got out Father's Day. I got out. A couple of guys got out. A couple of guys did not get out, but a couple of guys got out. So,
well, again, that probably wasn't a backdraft.
Although I did call Captain Murphy, and this is what he said to me. He said the feds did a computer analysis and said it was a smoke explosion, but he's also read that it may have been a backdraft enhanced by the flammables in the below grade confined space.
I think it was the flammables that ignited versus a backdraft. That's what from my reading of that, what they were talking about, that they smelled they could smell the flammable before it blew and everything. That's what I think that was. That's the type of explosion. I don't think it was a backdraft.
Just added to a bigger explosion because of all the vapor and whatever.
I think it was a flammable vapor explosion.
Right.
I think, versus
Think about it. It was a huge hardware store with storage
of
paints, lacquers, thinners. Could even been the small propane tanks like for barbecue. All of that stuff. Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That's the type of explosion I think that was. I don't think it was that like I say, a backdraft where it was looking for oxygen. I think it just hit some sort of ignition point and blew.
Right. Now
that wasn't there. That's just from reading.
Right. Now backing up to the Queen's job we just saw. That was we'll call that and again I don't want to say it, but that was basically a cockloft.
Yeah.
Because I mean, pretty much the floor level was. I mean, that was all open. That was all open up. So the odds are there, either an additional hole in the roof or somebody pulling the ceiling.
I think that's what they said, Hank. If I remember with that job, that something happened where when they cut, there was some smoke. I think when you see that, there is some smoke venting, but I think they do open up a little bit more, and then that's what because it was smoke. It was smoke pushing out of every store, and then after that, there's not a wisp of smoke out of any of the stores.
There's no smoke come out of the stores.
Any of the stores. So
yeah.
And it's funny is when I used to pull up to some jobs, right? I always used to when it was coming out of the cracks of the brick and everything, right? You're like, all right, we got a good job, now I'm like, maybe I don't know if I want to do that anymore.
You're like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, I could be on the couch.
I'm like, are you kidding me, man? Forget that shit.
Well, another angle, which and I asked, like I said, I ran this by Fat Daddy and Dennis Murphy today, and I even talked to Kevin a little yesterday. That if you go back to that job I had talked about in one of the previous episodes that I had in Rescue 1 in '93, with the the Chase Bank. Did I talk about this earlier when I said it was up? It was in that plenum, and that's basically the same thing. That's in a high-rise building, but for those of you who out there who don't know what the plenum is, it's the space between the ceiling and the floor above. Where in a high-rise they're running the duct work, all the electrical harnesses, computer cabling, and the fire started up in there. And once it finally reached its flash point, it blew everything down. 52 smoke heads went off at once, and it went to an 8-alarm fire. So even there, you wouldn't think about it in a high-rise building, but a plenum can actually give you that same type of effect as And
in that same vein, when you talk about high-rise buildings, I don't know if you ever had some buildings, instead of having a plenum above, they have a raised floor. And they have like 8 or 12-inch floor, and they run everything in there. So every floor has got that dead space. Instead of above you, it's below you.
Exactly.
I'm out of Manhattan.
And again, you'll find those in cities in the larger office buildings.
In the big office buildings, sometimes
large floor spaces where they have a ton of stuff to run to get the different computer stations and workstations and everything. And absolutely,
you know what's better than being above me? Below me.
I'll tell you.
That was an easy one there.
All right, Pete, let's look at the next video, for God's sakes.
Come on, man.
Yeah, this is the one with that snow situation. Let's take a look.
Oh my god. Video? Yep.
Oh my god. There we go. Maybe we should back up.
Yeah.
Maybe not. There
Oh
might
my
have
god.
been by now, but
So that just happened.
it's a second.
Oh shit. I just saw the video. Okay.
Holy. There was the film, man.
Whoa.
Totally Jim Sensor.
Yeah. Unreal.
Maybe you should keep that to sell it.
Sorry, boys. There we go. There we go.
It's the same
Yeah,
thing,
again-
Steve, right? You get
Again,
that
another one where, like, once the backdraft happens,
no smoke, nothing.
Boom.
Right.
And that looked like
that
it
was
came from that attic area or that
right,
cockloft area.
Right. I think that would be considered an attic.
Yeah.
Because of the peak.
Yep.
But again, it can occur in that type of situation also.
Any area where it can get confined.
Confined, right.
That's all you need.
And you had the Pete McLaughlin, right? That was a cockloft explosion, right? You went.
I did. I mean, I was in Rescue 1 that day, and I actually, a little backstory with that was I had worked in Rescue 4 overtime the night before. Pete McLaughlin had come in and relieved me in 4, brought the bagels in. We, had coffee and bagel in the morning, and he stayed. I took off and went to work my regular day tour in 1. Later in the day, we had the 2 rescues drilled. We met on the 59th Street Bridge because they were doing major paint and restoration and steel work. And there was a big trolley that went underneath the bridge that, rolled on the I-beams for the workers. So we drilled that day on taking an injured worker from below the bridge off that trolley, using the high angle ropes and the Stokes and everything. We had to drill, and then everybody went back to quarters. A little while later, an hour and a half or something, boom, we get special call to Queens, and it was the fire with Pete McLaughlin got killed. And so by the time we got there, I mean, Pete had already been removed and was taken to the hospital. But seeing the aftermath was basically a cockloft explosion, blew down, and when it kind of blew the ceiling down and stuff, and it trapped him from his exit, and he was engulfed. And
that window
from having a bagel and coffee with him in the morning, and later on that day, having to go to that. But
was 117 second due there, Ruffy, or first due?
No, we weren't. That was one.
I think 116 was
116,
maybe 115.
Correct.
And I think 128 or 115 would be second due there.
Right. Okay. I know 116 was one of the, I think they might have been first due.
116 is first due there.
Yeah.
116 is first due. I think 128 is second.
That's right on the corner of Northern and Steinway.
Right, yeah. Right.
Yep. Oh, right. So that would be 116. Patty Lee said he had that job. So he was in 117. You guys probably.
Yeah, I went there the next day to help the marshal clear out the room that he was in. And it had the accordion gate on. That was one of the issues.
Yes, the gate was another issue.
Gate was an issue. And then you could actually see where he was against the wall. You could see his outline, unfortunately, where he was. Yeah, it was fucking, I was a kid, man. That was, 94, 95, something
That's similar to what happened to Kevin Kane.
That's what I said to Hank. Same thing, right? He got the cockloft blew down and it hinged, right? And it cut him off, right?
And they were relocated. They were relocated, I think, to 107.
107, yeah.
And they had actually been. They were told they could take up, but I think they ended up staying.
Taking it in, yeah.
Right, and that was that was the night from a previous episode we were talking about. How busy it was. That was my busiest night in Rescue 1 as far as fire duty. 5 multiple alarms, 4 in Manhattan, and then we ended up getting special called when it went to a second alarm in Sunset Park because Rescue 2 was still at the job where Kevin Kane got killed and, with the fatal fire. So they were there, and we ended up in Sunset Park at a row of frames going that I think we got back at 4 in the afternoon from that. But that same thing, it blew down. And we just told these 2 stories. So even talking about, like we know about bowstring roofs and we shouldn't let history repeat itself. With these type of scenarios, sometimes you don't get enough time or a signal to know that it's going to happen. If you're in a room and you're seeing it overhead, but if it's in the cockloft or in the plenum or something above you, and you really don't have a good indication, and you just happen to be in the wrong spot at the wrong time, I mean, this is why it's a hazardous job because these things happen, and we try to learn as much as we can to make us educated and good firefighters. But even with all of that, it's, like I say, you report for that tour. You don't know at the end of that tour whether you're going home to your family. And
hey, like I said, I was I was a kid. I think that was 94, 95. I don't remember the year. But what we said after that job was, and it stuck with me my whole career, and I taught that to guys. As soon as you get in the door, you force the door. If we're on a top floor, usually it's like a 6-story type thing. You know, there's fire in multiple apartments. You get in the apartment, poke a hole. You go 10 feet, you poke a hole. You get into the next room, you poke a hole. You just keep poking till you find the fire. I don't know if that's what was done here. I don't know if it was in the back, but it was the first time you poked the hole. I don't have no idea. I'm just saying what I learned and what was taught to me and how I taught the guys was you don't want to get too deep in these apartments without knowing where the fire was in relation to your exit to the hallway.
Right. I mean, and that was always taught like with a taxpayer. The first thing when you went into taxpayer, you poke to see if it was in the cock loft. The only problem that I found with when you're poking holes sometimes is if you're not working your way towards the fire, if you're not really sure where it is, if there's something behind you and you've poked holes, sometimes now you've given it that oxygen and stuff where it can come and blow it down on you. So you want to make sure that as you're advancing, that you're also looking for your secondary way out because you might
not be able to get out that way, right?
Exactly.
But to Hank's point, what we always say on the show, bro, is like this job can humble you in a split second, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. You could be the best firefighter in the world, very knowledgeable, well respected, and it just takes one thing can happen, and it turns the tide on you.
Bad luck.
Well, your guest last week, Mr. Varielli, who had worked in all busy companies, 103, 290, and 217, and I forget which company he set up in the Bronx where he first was. What did he say when he went to Lower Manhattan? What did he say about those buildings
24.
there?
Yeah,
24 engine, which is not not. He said, but those buildings will humble you.
Yeah,
Hey, absolutely.
And he said that was one of the proudest. A couple of those jobs where the guys did a really good job in Manhattan was one of the. Like you said, how many fires that guy went to in his career, 35 years, and that was some of the proudest he was of his guys. Yeah. Was some of those crazy jobs in Manhattan,
Yep. Because they're not routine. There's no. It's not like doing a tenement, or even in 13th Division units where they're so used to doing the PDs and what they do.
Right.
Every job in Manhattan is like an adventure.
Absolutely.
How was he talking about the buildings? Like it was an L, like on one street, and then it was on the other block on the avenue, and then it was on the street,
Yeah.
but it
wasn't. They have a lot of those.
Yeah. I was telling him a story about when you had one of your first jobs at 55. You said you had a sub basement, right? You kept walking down, felt like you were walking down forever.
By the way, I don't know if you know this, but I'm out on sub.
I'm out on sub cells.
I went down there.
My whole career. I'm out.
He said, no, it's in the basement. I said, we are in the basement. He goes, no, it's down.
Keep going. I'm out.
I can remember more than once in Rescue 1 pulling up to a job in like the loft section, and at 3 a.m, marshmallow pumping out of the building, and the chief saying, "Listen, they haven't found the fire yet. I need you to go find a fire."
Yeah,
and you're tying two search lines together. I remember one time we ended up going down from the first on the conveyor belt that came up to the sidewalk. I remember a young guy, like I think he had the Proby thing on, was standing in the sidewalk, and his eyes were this big, looking at us, with the smoke coming out, going down. I think to try to locate the fire, but that was second nature, and you had to do it. Who else is coming to put it out? It was.
I only did that once. I forget who it was. We had a rescue officer, and we went down the conveyor belt. I was like, "Holy shit, man! This is like
you and Murph."
Was it?
That was Dwayne Reed.
Oh, right, it was right down the conveyor belt, bro.
Yeah, that wasn't so much fun.
I tell you, you ran into some weird things. We ended up. Went to a fifth alarm. It was a Sunday day. Bright sunny day, 23rd Street and 5th Avenue, and it was a 12-story building, brand new, and smoke was pumping out of this thing, and it was like, guys were looking for this fire, and again, long story short, what had happened was there was a 1-story taxpayer on this corner that they left, and they built this 11 stories above it, and they brought the skin of the building right down in front of it, so it looked like a brand new 12-story building. But the fire was in the cock loft of the 1-story taxpayer. Once it was found, and it was because we went in and threw a hook through the new ceiling, and then there was another ceiling. You pull it down, you had plaster and lath. You're like a brand new building with plaster and lath, and then we realized Okay, and you got smoke pushing out of it, and we said, all right, hey, this is an old taxpayer. Stop pulling the ceilings, start a fire, and the engines came in and put the fire out. But it went to a fifth alarm before that happened.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of stuff you run into, and
Forget Manhattan. You know what I'm thinking about, Chief Steve? The building on top of a building. You know what I'm talking about?
No, where?
The crematory, where they built a building on top of a building.
Around the building. They built it around the building. The
They
crematory.
built a building around another building. So you went out on the roof, and it was
looked like an old Gothic.
You're like, what the fuck is this? Yeah.
Yeah, that was. I went there to do the inspection when I was in 140. Yeah, they just encased the other building. They just went totally around it and built this other building.
And what was that first one built in the 1800s, right? The original building?
Yeah.
We had were you working, Hank? We had a job at a crematory?
No, I know the job you're talking about. I wasn't working for that.
We had a fat
I remember
a big fat guy, and blubber was oozing out. It was oozing out onto rubbish, and it stunk, and it was black and goopy. It was good stuff.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, well. All right. So
where are we at?
Well, Flashover. I think we should. I mean, I would like. I don't know how long we're on tonight, but I feel. Can I run with something right now a little bit? Or
go ahead. Let's check you, Chief Steve. You got to go to bed yet? Is the nurse coming to put you to bed? You all right?
No, I got 10 more minutes. Go ahead.
Hey, go with 10 minutes.
Well, I only got 9, so he's got a minute more than me.
The Del Boca Vista gang.
That's before the nurses come in and put me to bed.
Listen, how do I get a nurse like that? That's what I want, bro.
Easy.
I can't say it on the air, but whatever. Flashover. I know when I was a chief at the Nassau County Fire Academy, we were working on a flashover simulator. Dennis Murphy was on the committee. He kind of, I think he spearheaded it myself. I don't think Fat Daddy was on it, but I know he taught it once it was up and running. There was a few other guys, but to me, it really, we'll call it a rollover simulator. They're a valuable tool. If you're in the fire service, I think it's good that at some point you need to get into one of these because if you're going to talk about reading smoke or at least getting an experience, the first time you get it in a controlled type of environment is usually a good thing, and you can make a learning experience out of it. And like the one we did, basically you were just burning Class A materials. We had it in a brick bunker building. Built a stage, so it was up on a concrete stage. So this way the students were below it. This way, when it did go, you weren't burning anybody or compromising their gear. But we would stack up. I forget the formula. It took a while to get everything right. And no matter what, even if you say it's 12 pallets and this amount of hay or Excelsior to get it going, one night it could be 70 degrees. And humid, and the next night it's another night it's 50 degrees. It's gonna vary it. And we even had louvers. I remember Dennis reminded me today. We had louvers on the roof, and there would be a chief that would the chain that could actually control the louvers. For the oxygen getting in and out. You could control this flashover. But it was a good tool because you would light it up. And it got hot in the beginning. We ruined some gear. I remember when we were practicing. At one point, I was one of the guys in the front, and it got hot enough that it actually started melting the conical facepiece. When you took it off, you could see it was melting. But once you got it down, you could put these guys in a room, and you could talk to them, and they would see the fire intensify. You'd see the smoke, starting to go overhead, and as the flashes of the fire and the smoke, and it was very visible, and you could talk them through that, and then the next thing you know, boom, it's all fire over their head, and it's a good learning tool.
I said that in the pre-show we were talking about that.
You don't want it and this I'm stealing a learning experience, but if it's done correctly, it is a good learning tool. So that's
really the only learning tool.
Hopefully your department. I know a lot of smaller departments may not have the ways or means to do it, and they're using cargo containers now and stuff. But if you're a chief in one of those departments and you can get your members into one of those simulators, to me, I think it's a worthwhile thing to do.
Here's another tip. When you're breathing really hot air in your face piece, when you're breathing hot air in your face piece, it's time to go.
I'm losing you.
Hank said member.
Say it again. I lost you there.
Hank said member.
No, what was Louis saying? He had something constructive to say.
No, I said when you're breathing really hot air, it's time to go.
Right.
In your face piece, like when you start breathing really hot air, that the air in your face piece is getting hot.
Frank's having technical difficulties. Frank, right?
Come on, Frankie.
Pete, can I ask you one question?
Check that door for heat, Tim.
Are those hot dogs kosher for Mike Milner? You want to know?
Hey!
Hold on a minute.
That's it.
Look at your brother's face, man. Look at your brother's face. That just says it all, man. It just says it all.
I'm just going to say this. The last line in the new Chief Steve song says it all. So when that comes out, you'll understand why they got that look on his face.
Oi, next week. What?
Is that what we got? We good? Anybody else? Go ahead. Go back to the heated face piece.
Yeah, the simulator is really the best tool because guys don't get to see that too often. The rollovers and all that stuff. It really, when I went to the one on the job, you could tell the guys who were in there all the time teaching that thing. It's like second nature to them,
Right. I mean, you become comfortable because you kind of know what to expect.
Correct.
You mean so you see it and and it can control the environment.
You want guys like that teaching it because they know what's going to happen. They're not sitting there in the amusement park ride. They can narrate to these guys, young guys that have never experienced this yet, and tell them what to look for and what's going to happen. And
no, it's good. It is the best tool.
Simulation.
It is the best tool.
Oh, you said tool.
Said tool.
All right, and what I was going to say too, the other thing is that it's better if they see it in a controlled environment before they see it when it happens and they actually shit their pants, man.
Of course.
Right, and I'm going to go back to something. I'll bet you Chief Steve doesn't even remember this. When I was a probie and I first got on the job, do you remember what you said to me? The first
difficulties here.
What?
Do I remember what I said?
I was losing you guys again.
Yes. Do you remember what you said to me? You hope what?
You said, didn't you say this?
I was up there doing it.
I was up there doing it, Steven.
No, you have to tell me, and I see if I remember saying it.
What he said to me, he probably doesn't even remember. I hope the first job you go to isn't one of those jobs that scares you so much it changes
you want to quit.
That you want to quit, right? I hope you ease into it and you get a job, like a one roomer or whatever it was.
Shadow. Did the beast look at you?
No. Did the beast look at you?
Yeah, because you never know what's going to be the worst job you get. Could be the first job. Could be the last job. You never know. Is he frozen like that, or is he just doing?
Oh my God! Is that incredible?
No, Hank was asleep.
That was pretty good, though, right? I stayed back there for a long time. Right?
I thought it was frozen.
I can hold that inside face for a long time, bro.
Oh, I have faith in you.
You look like you were waiting for some of those Hebrew nationals.
Dave Port says Chief Steve always has a disappointing look from Kev at least once a show.
Wait till next week. We got the wives show on, and Mrs. Kubler's on there. Well, both Mrs. Kublers. Chief Steve's Mrs. Kubler and my old lady, Mrs. Kubler.
And Mrs. Rafrano.
Oh, wait till you see Ruffy's wife. Woo!
Ruffy, I am.
We're gonna have to tighten the bolts again next week. I'm gonna have to have a meeting with him again this week.
Have a meeting with Kev, not with me, please.
Off the rails again. He's off the rails again.
He really is.
Not bringing anything to the table.
I think his level is about a quarter of a bubble off right now.
You gotta give him one of these.
All right, Rocco!
It's killing me.
What do you got? You got any shout outs before we tie this thing up in a pretty bow?
I do. Give me my
first one.
First one, please.
Roger that. Coming up.
So this is a shout out. This is Lieutenant Gerald McGibbon. He served in the FDNY from September of 1987 through January 2013. 25 years on the job. He was in Engine 283, 206, and Engine 217. He was also in the FDNY task force that went down to New Orleans to help out in Katrina. He passed away the other day, unfortunately, from 9/11 cancer. And then I have from Mikey McVeigh sent me this is Lieutenant Henry Hinton. I'm sorry, Henry Hinton, Engine 275. He passed away today. He was on the job 1981 to 2001. So
wow, yeah. Well, we're at a couple guys were asking for a shout out from the members of Black Sunday because the anniversary was just last week, and also for the brother who got knocked in a noggin with an air conditioner.
Oh my God, that was brutal.
Recover for that, boy. So let's give a little moment of silence. I'm gonna give the old 5 bells. Cheers to the boys. Cheers to the brothers.
Mm-hmm. Cheers, boys.
Salute. All right, Ruffy, what do you got? What else do you got?
What do I got? We got on Thursday, we got who do we got? We have
a guest. Very nice.
I know who it is.
Billy Walsh.
Billy Walsh, famous TV star.
He was in what show was that? You know better than I do. I have no idea.
Was it the one, Oz or something? Was
the early one, the first one?
He was in the Fire show.
That might have been Tim. That was the other Timmy.
That was in one. They filmed it at 1:15. Chief, what is that? What was that? What's he doing? Reading his stocks? What are you doing over there?
Yeah, I was actually.
Not rescue me.
Yeah, was it rescue?
No. It was
Third Watch.
Third Watch. Giddy up. Somebody wrote it. Third Watch. He was in Third Watch. Billy Walsh.
So yeah, he's a funny guy. He's long time on the job. So we're gonna have him on Thursday. Should be a very entertaining show. He's a very entertaining guy. So
yes. Nice. And Monday, fellas, is the long anticipated live show. The long anticipated live show on Monday. The following Thursday, I got my buddy from Boston. I was in probie school with him. What the hell is Hank doing over there? You all right? You all right?
Oh, me?
I gotta get off.
You guys are buffering, and I couldn't hear you.
Fucking killing me, man.
Come on, man. All right, so
we lost him.
Do the Hank.
He checked out.
The hamster's fell off his internet wheel, man, and that's it. Done.
All right, so listen, we got two. My buddy Neil Mullane. I was in probie school with him. He moved down to New York to get on the job. I was in probie school with him. I think he was there 4 or 5 years. Then the Boston Fire Department called him, moved back up to Boston, became a fireman there, and now he's a battalion chief in Boston. He's got a really funky accent. I love it. And he's having on another buddy of his. He was a friend since they were kids, another supposed hard charger who was actually running for the IAFF. So we're going to listen to his fire stories. We're going to tell him to leave that political bullcrap at home. We'll listen to his fire stories. Where'd Hank go? We're also going to take up a fun for Hank.
Liberal.
He's gone.
No. He's just running for office for president of IAFF. He's running for.
Want to take Kruckenberg's spot?
I guess. I don't know.
Kruckenheimer.
Yeah.
I never liked that guy.
As far as Chief Steve's going under the knife soon. Want to tell us a little bit that he's going to be the bionic ankle. Oh, there he is. You all right?
No, I lost the whole internet. I just switched back to an iPad. Hold on.
Come on, man. Gary!
Can we say goodnight, please? Did you just say, see you at the big one? For God's sake, stay long.
See you at the big one. Oh, Edzo. That's who we're having on. Right. We're having on Edzo. We're having Edzo and Neil Mullane on the following Thursday. Next week is the Wives show next Monday. And then Hank's frozen again. And then on this Thursday, we're having, what's his name from Third Watch? Right. Okay. Good. Amen. All right, Pete, take us out, buddy.
Okay.
Oh, wait. Before we talk about Chief Steve, let's wish him a a speedy recovery. When you going under the knife? Not before with the wife.
Sometime in February. I hope not next Monday. You know, I'm hoping it's not that.
Sometime in February, you have the whole ankle done, a bionic ankle put in there.
Yeah.
Right, you're gonna be able to slam a basketball now, dunk a basketball.
I doubt it.
You're not. All right.
Good luck, Steve.
Thank you.
Are you
Really
going to
good
have
luck. Good luck.
that other surgery too, the edidectomy? Are you having that one? You're not.
That's like
You know who the best surgeon is for that? The edidectomy? It's Ivan Kuchakov. He's a Russian guy. He's a great guy.
Very good, right? Yeah.
Look at Ruffy. He's like this.
Dr.
right.
Nuts.
Because I can't
If
take
got 6 months to live,
No,
couldn't pay his
go
bill,
ahead.
give him another 6 months.
Because I can't take this much longer. Listen to us on iTunes, podcast, and Spotify. Like, subscribe, and share right here on youtube.com/Getting Salty Experience. Go to Instagram.com/SaltyDongGig. And last but not least, head on over to GettingSaltyApparel.com, where you can buy all the cool t-shirts, hats, firefighting stuff, etc. And if you got a great question to ask Lou, like
He loves it.
he loves suggestions, head on over to GettingSaltyExperience@gmail.com for the Q&A shows, guys. And that is all.
Really? You think I should have Cat Morris on? Really? Wow. I never thought about that one. Really? Well, Chief Salty. Wow, that's a great one.
Really?
I never thought about that. You know what? I never thought about it. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Hey, Lou, you know who you should have on? Bosch Tweed.
Yeah.
He's a great. Yeah.
Oh, shit.
All right, that's all I
Smokey
got.
Joe Martin.
Smokey, hey, Lou,
Joe.
kids.
See, Smokey Joe's available.
That's going to be Lou hunting down the people that ask him stupid questions.
Really?
And then you know.
Never thought that.
All right. Everybody's wishing Chief Steve a speedy recovery. He'll be on the show on Monday for the wife show. And remember, he's got his finger on the trigger. Any inappropriate questions, you're booted. You're out for the show. Done.
Yeah, I mean, just one thing to add to that. This is about the support mechanism for all the guys on the job, which is your family at home. So, you know, that's how we're approaching the show, guys. Be respectful, and that's all I'm going to say about that. Boom.
All right, good. All right, that's all I got to say, Chief Steve. Frank Molay, thanks for coming on, Frank. I appreciate
Thanks for coming on, guys. I appreciate
Hank,
it.
I love you. I'm so sorry. I saw Hot Dog hit in the face, and I thought Frank's. I thought Molay. It hit
All
me.
right. All right. Stay low and go.
All right, see you at the big one.
Listen, good night, Leatherheads. Take care. Be safe.
Later, brothers.
Take care.
Good luck, Steve.